Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Meeple Leaf Reviews. This is episode 14.
Yes.
Of the Meeple Leaf Reviews video/audio podcast, depending on where you're listening or watching.
Yes.
My name is Jeffrey, and this is Yes.
I am Yes. Or Jacob.
So,
what's happening?
not much.
What's happening?
Just
playing some games?
I've actually been playing some games lately.
That's good.
Played Trick Carry On a few times.
Yeah.
Which we're going to be doing a review for soon.
Full review, because we did a before and after, which is our expectations, and then first impressions, and now we've played it enough times that we wanted to do a full actual review of the game. Because we can.
Because that's what we do. I'm not going to go too much into it, but man, that is a beast of a game.
Oh yeah. I mean, everything from setup to just playing the game.
Yeah.
I mean, setup takes probably about 20-30 minutes, and then you got the pre-game phase where you're figuring out your plan for the game and like picking all your resources and your specialists and your tricks and your special unique abilities. You're picking all this stuff out and planning what you're going to do over the course of the game.
I think we should do a list of top 5 games with a pre-game component.
There's only one. Trick Carry On.
Well, see, I'm gonna think about that.
Okay.
If you guys know of any games where you got to spend a significant amount of time thinking about the game before you actually start playing.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's like 15 to 20 minutes that we sat there and we're just like, okay, I'm going to do this and this guy and I'm going to have this trick and then that's going to lead into these tricks over here. And then I'm going to, but I need these resources. Should I start with this character or this character? And then, we'll check out all these special abilities. I'm going to change from this into this and then switch it out. And it's ridiculous.
Yeah, pre-game.
It's ridiculous.
There's a game before the game. So yeah,
it's fun. It's fun. The pre-game is fun.
Oh yeah, it's setting yourself up for the entire game of what am I going to do. This is where you're laying that groundwork. Yeah, you're making the blueprint. You're laying the tracks. You're like, okay, straight shot to the finish line, and you get derailed several times.
Yeah.
So yeah,
good times.
Other than that, I mean, I played a few games here and there. I did buy a few games.
Oh, okay.
And backed a few games on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So one game that I'm buying is Agricola, the revised edition.
Okay.
And we just finished our top 25 games, and Agricola was on there for me. So I'm excited to see what changes are in the revised edition. And see how it plays compared to the original.
So you haven't even done any research on the game? You don't know what's different, what's changed? You just I need this new edition.
Yeah, I need the new edition.
What if it's exactly the same?
I have heard that it is not exactly the same. Okay. And the thing that I was like, okay, the reason why I wanted it is they updated the graphic design. So a lot of the cards had like text, like really small text on it, of what it did, and they updated the cards to just be symbology. Okay. So it's kind of like an upgraded component card wise. So I was like, okay, I want it just because of that is enough for me to want to get it. But there is some changes, so I want to see what the changes are, and I want to try it out.
Right. Yeah. I was actually going to play Agricola for the first time last night.
What?
Yeah. I went over to a friend's house and he was just like, yeah, man, I want to play Agricola. And I was like, yeah, man, no, I don't. I knew that I was going to be playing it with you, and I knew that you had actually ordered this new edition.
Right.
And I figured I might as well learn on the new edition.
Yeah.
So we actually ended up playing Betrayal at House on Hill instead. Yeah. Which is like a horror themed game. It's really unique. It's really interesting. Oh man, how do you put it?
It's a game.
It's very old school.
Yeah.
Right? So you got these basic stats, you're moving around, and it just comes across as very old. Like the style of play, there's not a ton there, right? There's not these crazy mechanics going off.
I've also heard that it's not... Like, you can tell it's aged because the mechanics aren't as polished.
Yeah.
As, like, some of the newer newer games that come out?
Yeah, it's basically you just move over into a room and you draw a card and you figure out what happens based off of what that card says. Yeah. You'll either get an item or some sort of event will trigger. So you go around and it's all cooperative in the beginning. Eventually, an event will trigger where these bad guys a traitor will become
a betrayal, if you will.
A betrayal, yes. Someone will become an evil monster of some sort. Something will happen. So this one that we played, the person became a traitor, and they had apparently buried someone. They had like kidnapped someone from our group and buried them. Yeah. And they were just gonna like suffocate to death. Right. So we had to like figure out where they buried them. So we had to go down to the basement and like start searching these rooms, and the person was attacking us while we were trying to find them, and they ended up suffocating to death.
Oh no.
But the mechanics of the game are very interesting in how endgame triggers, or how it switches from the cooperative into the end game. It's very unique. And there are something like 50 plus different options for what could happen when that happens. So there's 50 different monsters or bad things that are going to happen. Now, this is a game that I don't think I would ever ask to come to the table. Right. However, it's a game that I would be happy to play every single Halloween. Okay. Like, I think I might buy this game, and just every Halloween I'll bring it out to the table and we'll play it because it's kind of horror themed and it's entertaining. I had fun playing it, and I got screwed in the game too, like where I couldn't do much because of the bad things that were happening to me. But I still had a good time.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when a game is more based on the interaction and you kind of the mechanics aren't as polished. Like, there's a lot more maybe free-forming it, so you don't have to take it as seriously. Now, you did mention this before, so I'm kind of leading a little bit. Okay. But how did the person teach the game to everyone else that was there?
Right. So he was really bad at teaching. He hadn't played the game in about a year, but he had played it several times before. And this is not a complicated game by any means. You have 4 stats. They point to a number, and because it's like these sliding dials, and that number dictates how many dice you roll when you are asked to roll from that trait. So it'll be like, oh, roll a speed check. So you look at your speed value and you roll that many dice, and you compare your value that you rolled on the dice to the difficulty number. That's basically it. Your movement is whatever your speed is. You can move that far. Right. When you enter a room where you're confronted with a challenge or flipping a card and reading something, your turn ends at that point. That's the extent of the game until it changes to where someone becomes the betrayer and then new rules are implemented. But he read from the rule book, reading from page to page the rules of the game, and I was just like, oh my gosh. It took, how long did it take for me to explain that to you right there?
That was like a minute.
Because we could have started playing the game right at that point. It took us, I think, 25 minutes before we started playing the game. Because you had to read through all the rules. And we were just like, maybe we can start playing and read as... no, can't do that. Can't do that.
We got to read the whole thing.
Got to know what's going on in order to play the game. I'm reading as fast as I can here. It was just like, oh my gosh. So it was a little painful, but it was still a good experience on top of that. So
well, I mean, it's kind of like the in the board game Breakfast from the Dice Tower. Okay. Recently they had Rodney Smith on from Watch It Play.
So good.
And he did this segment where it's Watch It Read, where he just took the rule book and he was reading word for word. Oh, that's so amazing.
Yeah, that was my favorite part. I loved it.
That's so amazing.
I think pauses to take a drink. It was so good. Oh, man.
But yeah, the fact that people think that that's a legitimate way to teach other people the game is hilarious. Although
so that's what he did.
I wouldn't mind Rodney actually doing that because I find his voice very soothing.
Well, there you go. Rodney, if you're listening, you can start a separate channel.
Watch It Read
or listen to it read. If you want.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
We will listen / watch. So go ahead and do that.
All right, so that was your Betrayal on the House on the Hill.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So you're gonna get it and play it every Halloween.
I think if I can find it for a good price. Right. The one thing that I did notice was the quality of the components were the worst I've ever seen ever. Okay. Like and every single tile was warped in like 3 different ways. It was like a wave.
Well,
and it wasn't like they were like dropped in water or anything.
Maybe that's part of the game. It's like a 3-dimensional terrain that you have. Like, so if you're doing a speed check and you have to go up this hill, then you actually can't go as far.
It's the advanced variant.
It's the advanced variant of the game. Maybe he didn't get to that part of the rulebook.
Yeah, maybe we cut him off. Man, I feel bad now.
Yeah, I mean, board warpage.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was so bad. So if I don't know if they have like a newer edition of the game that came out, how many editions they have. So it depend on how much it was.
Right.
And then I might pick it up.
Right.
If it's cheap enough too. Because I mean, it wasn't a game where I'm just like, oh yeah, I want to play this. It was just like, this would be funny to play every single Halloween, right. And especially if people are getting into their roles and kind of acting it out. Yeah. Because it would be easy to do that.
Yeah.
So easy to act out this game as you're playing and just kind of role play it. A lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'd give it a try.
Yeah.
I've heard some people at my workplace, like they're not really into games like hobby style games.
Sure.
Like I mentioned, oh yeah, like I play like board games, and like, oh, I played Betrayal on the House on the Hill, and they really, really liked it. Yeah. So I mean, I'd give it a try.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't blow anything out of the water.
No.
But it was just fun. It was fun to play. It was quick too.
You could read me the rule book.
Okay, yeah. Or maybe we can convince Rodney. You can just listen to him read the rules.
So I mentioned that I had backed some stuff on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So we just talked about Tricarion, which is from Mind Clash Games.
Mind Clash Games, yeah.
So I backed their next project, which is Anachrony, and you had brought that up in our previous episode.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to, all these stuff you're bringing up in Kickstarter is making me go like, ooh.
That's why I bring them up. Every game that I want to buy, I just bring it up and hope that
you're going to
try and sell it to buy it for me. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely after playing Tricarion some more, I was like, okay, I think these guys have some good ideas for games and heavier style. Yeah. Longer games. I'm like, oh, I'm looking for something cool. So yeah, I went ahead and backed that one, as well as This War of Mine.
Sure, yeah.
I backed that one as well for, I don't know, I really like gritty TV shows, like
sure.
dark and gritty stuff, like Sons of Anarchy is like that, Breaking Bad, like more realistic. That's why I'm a big fan of the Batman Begins with Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Because I think it took a little bit more realistic, a little bit darker than all the previous Batmans.
I agree.
I love that. Same thing with the new James Bond with Daniel Craig. Okay. It kind of took it more realistic, more dark versus like the Pierce Brosnan James Bond before that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was dark, the James Bond stuff, but the newer ones. But it's definitely more kind of realistic than a fluffy, funny kind of characters doing ridiculous things.
You don't have like some like satellite that's like burning holes in the earth and like the one of the Pierce Brosnan ones.
Yeah.
What is this?
Right.
But yeah, and This War of Mine is taking a more realistic look at war and the moral difficult choices that come along with that. Like you're low on resources and you come across someone that needs help, and like the humanity in you, the empathy, you want to say yes, but if you do, well, maybe you can't help out everyone that's in your own like shelter and stuff like that. Right. So, and then you're like, well, I need medicine for Billy who's, suffering back at camp, and there's this guy here with medicine. Do I take it from him? Stuff like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. It is cooperative, which I've said is not my favorite genre, but that realistic nature and that different look at something, like, because there's so many war games out there, right? But it's so abstracted, but
it's not even, this isn't really even a war game. It like takes place during war, but you're not part of that war,
right? And like that's what I mean, like the war theme is used a lot, but it's so abstracted that you don't really feel like, oh yeah, I just sent in this platoon and mowed everyone down, and you're like, yeah, we did it. Whereas, that would probably be pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
If you did that in real life.
Yeah, exactly.
So I that's why I went back to it, because I think it's doing something different.
Interesting. Yeah, and it's been doing really well too. It's hit several stretch goals and unlocked a bunch of stuff. I was actually surprised when you said to me that you had backed this because of the fact that it's cooperative, and I know that you're not keen on cooperative.
No. But there are a few cooperative games that I enjoy, like Time Stories.
Yeah.
We mentioned Warhammer Quest came out last year. I really liked that game. So there are a few here and there, but for the most part, now I'm not a cooperative player.
Right. I played a cooperative game recently as well called Castaways. This was one that I bought a while ago. It's very similar to Robinson Crusoe, where you're stuck on an island and you need to find the resources to basically get rescued.
Right.
And this game is so punishing. It is so brutal. You start off and you don't have enough food and you got to like go out and get food, but you need shelter. The weather is pounding down on you.
Yeah.
You build up this shelter and you get a fire started, and then the next event card's like, oh, if you have a fire going, it burns down your house. You're like, what? Come on. It's just, it's so hard to get anything done because you have this energy that you need to spend, but then you only get energy back if you rest. But resting is an action. And this is a worker placement game, but you only have 2 workers. So you put one of them on an action to rest, so you get energy back, and then the other one to go do one thing. So it's a worker placement where you're only doing one thing, essentially, with every action. It's, so punishing. Interesting game.
Right.
I like it. I don't know how much replayability it has, even though it's designed for replayability.
Okay.
You have these 3 decks. You have the coast deck, so you're kind of scouring the coast of the island, and then you go to the interior, and then eventually you hit the heart of the island. Each of these decks, and you always have to do it in that order, so you have to complete the entire coast before you can advance. The entire coast has 8 cards that are always the same, and then you mix in another 8 random cards from this deck of maybe 20 to 24 or something, 24 cards or something like that. And they have random events on them. So you shuffle those in. When you hit those random events, they'll give you choices that you can make. Like, you find a boar, you can either run away or you can kill it and try and make food.
Every time I'd take it on.
Or
bring it on, boar.
Whatever the case is, right? Yeah. So you're given options. And based off of what you choose, it will tell you to take a card from this deck of 1 to 155 cards. Or there's 155 cards and it'll have a number on it, and you take that and you shuffle it into one of the next decks.
Right.
So as you're making choices here, you're adding new cards to the next deck, then you're going to hit that, and those will give you options based off of what you did previously, and you have more options to choose from, and you take those cards out and put them in the next deck. So you're kind of choosing your own adventure as you go. But you're always going to have those same 8 cards in every single deck, and then it's just adding in what this other stuff is. And if you make some of the same choices as cards come up, replayability might be a little low. I don't know. I felt like I've played it 3 times now, and the third play I was just like seeing a lot of the same stuff coming up because of those natural cards that are in every deck. And I was just going, okay, it's this card again, and we'll put that over here. And so it kind of got samey a little bit, even though there is replayability there. Yeah, I think it's weird.
Like, for me, replayability is definitely important.
Yeah.
In a game.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I want to be able to get a lot out of it and approach the game in different ways, every time. Not necessarily every time, but I want to try I want to try this strategy or that strategy. I want to be multiple different decisions that I can make. Now, it doesn't always have to be that way, but if you're only going to get like 3-4 games before you're like, this is kind of just doing the same thing over and over again. Meh.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm going to keep it around for a very long time. It is something that I want to play a little bit more of. I find it interesting, and because it's cooperative and because it's so hard.
Right.
Like, I haven't beaten it yet.
No,
it kicks your butt every game.
You gotta play it till you beat it. You're like, all right, done.
Well, there we go. So I might have it in my collection forever.
There you go. Well, I mean, I'll briefly touch on this because I think I've talked about this before. But for me, cooperative games have to find that fine balance of being you win or lose by a single decision or a single action.
Right.
Like, you know, it's fun sometimes to just get the snot beaten out of you.
Yeah.
And then you just lose. But the best co-ops are like, oh, we almost won. Or, oh, we won just barely. Woo! Like, if that would have went one more turn, we would have been done.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, there's only so many times you can play a game and get trounced.
Yeah, I think in order to win this game, things have to go well for you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about how well you play. It's more about how lucky you are with what comes up.
And that could be frustrating.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll touch on it later and tell you guys if I kept it, beat it, or got rid of it.
Or if it's just still sitting on the shelf.
Or if it's still sitting on the shelf unplayed.
So there is something else I wanted to ask you about, and it's been something that I've been thinking about for a while.
Okay.
And I definitely noticed a change in my habits. So it's, why do you consume board game media?
Right.
Like what do you look for in your board game media?
Well,
do you want me to start so I can give you some time?
Sure.
Give you some time to think about it.
This is a tough one for me. Go ahead.
So for me, mostly it's just to get entertained.
Yeah.
Like, I don't consume a lot of content. Like, I watch reviews for some games. I'm like, okay, I'm interested in this game. I'm going to go look. But I just don't en masse consume review after review after review of this and that and this and all, like 100 different games. Mostly, like, I like top 10 lists. I like it when people argue, and like, I like the discussions that go around games, or like if I do watch a review, I skip the rules section almost all the time. I want to hear, okay, well, what does this person think of the game?
Sure. Okay, so for me, oh man, you hit on so many things there. I mean, I consume a lot because I listen to tons of podcasts.
Yeah.
I drive for a living, so I just throw an earbud in and I listen to about 6 hours of podcasts every single day.
So you're consuming a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've powered through all of Blue Peg, Pink Peg, all of Secret Cabal, all of Boards Alive, and I've started another one now. I can't remember the name of it, but all in just a couple months.
Right.
I consumed all their content, and they're at 70 episode average for those guys. Right. Secret Cabal is at 120 now or something like that.
Yeah.
And then watching reviews, I usually go for content. I want information about what's good because I want to find that next game that I can play and enjoy. But as you said, it's also about entertainment. I also want to hear from, hear these guys' experience. And I mean, Secret Cabal, they're hilarious when they're just bantering back and forth, even about non-gaming stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a fun time. So it gives me something to pass the time, as well as talks about something that I'm interested in talking about. Half the time I wish I was there on their podcast talking with them because I want to chime in about something that they said.
Yeah.
Whether it's I completely agree or completely disagree with them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I found initially when I started getting into the hobby, I consumed a lot for information purposes.
Right.
Because, I was looking for games to buy. And I'm like, okay, well, what's a good game? And things like that. And now it's kind of shifted more towards just entertainment.
Yeah.
Entertainment for me. Because I'll read up on different games on BGG. Okay, well, what's the mechanics? What's the theme? And that's something else that I've kind of changed. Before I didn't care about the theme. But now I'm finding more and more. I'm like, okay, I want a good theme, something interesting that's going to pull me in. And then I'm like, okay, well, I think I'll like this game mechanically and what's going on. What do other people think about it?
Sure. Because
there's sometimes I'll watch a game and how it's played, going through. I'm like, okay, I think I'll like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the really meaty stuff is, what does someone who I respect or I kind of have tastes that align with, what do they think about the game? And then that kind of gives me an even better indication.
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head there. I mean, often I'll see a game and I'll see some mechanics and I'll be like, oh man, that is an awesome mechanic. I love that. I want to play this game. But then I'll go and I'll listen to a reviewer talking about the game and they'll say some things about that mechanic where I'm just like, oh, that's how it works? It didn't work at all how I thought it would in the game. And so it just changes my perspective completely. So I definitely go at it for information and just gaining information from these different reviewers is so good for me.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and like I said, my favorite is just being entertained by whoever it is that I listen to or watch, especially when people argue. Oh,
yeah.
It's
entertaining.
As I think as everyone loves watching other people argue about things. And a lot of time I don't even know, I haven't played the game that they're talking about or something like that, but I'm still entertained by their discussion about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many different types of content that are out there as well. I mean, you talk about Rodney Smith, who we mentioned earlier, and he's doing, this is exactly how the game is played.
Yeah.
So I consume that when I'm interested in a game and I want to see exactly how it's done.
Yeah, the thing I do with his videos, if it's a game that I'm going to play, I'll usually read the rule book first, and then I don't have you have some of an idea. Usually I read through twice a rule book.
Right.
But if he has a video for it, I'll read through the rule book, then I'll watch the video, and it kind of cements it in my mind how to play the game.
Yeah.
And then I feel much more confident than going in and teaching other people.
Right.
Rather than had I just read the rule book by myself.
Right. Yeah, so I watch his videos to figure out exactly how it works, and then I know how that plays, and then I go to another reviewer to figure out, what are their opinions, because Rodney doesn't give his opinions.
Right.
And the other reason why I consume so much, and I have a wide variety of people that I go to, and I'm always looking for new reviewers as well, is because I haven't found someone that has the exact taste that I do either. So I'm just like, okay, I kind of believe this person because they have similar tastes. This guy doesn't. I have no similarities with this other reviewer, so if he says he likes it, then I probably won't. And so I kind of dart back and forth between different people to formulate my opinion.
Right, and I feel exactly the same way, that I haven't really found someone who's in line with me as much as what I would need to if this person said this game is great, I can basically take them at face value and go.
I can't do that.
But I think that's what's awesome about this hobby, is that there's so many different opinions out there about games, is that you can go to all these different ones, and if someone's raving about a game, you're like, oh man, that game is awesome. That game must be awesome. I need to get it. And then you listen to someone else and they're kind of trashing it, like, well, it sounds like they have a legitimate concern about this game.
Sure.
So getting multiple opinions on a game definitely helps in making a decision on whether or not you want to buy it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Completely, 100%.
Yeah, and sometimes even I have no intention of buying it, but just listening to people talk about games is interesting.
Yeah, no, it always is. Keeps me entertained, keeps me knowledgeable as well. Even as something that I have no interest in whatsoever, if the more I know about it, the more I can kind of input certain things in our podcasts, in our videos about that topic. So.
Well, yeah, I think definitely it's shifted to becoming a reviewer or someone who reviews games, is seeing what other people's criticisms of the games that you're going to review are.
Mm-hmm.
Like if all these people have this particular criticism and you didn't really feel the same way, or you have a rebuttal kind of to that, putting that out there so there is those varied views on a game is also good. So definitely becoming a reviewer, consuming the content, I'm a lot more cognizant of what the particulars of why they didn't like or why they liked a game.
Sure. I think it also keeps you open-minded. well, it kind of teaches you about yourself is kind of what I'm getting at here. You'll listen to someone else and they'll mention something and maybe you haven't even thought of that.
Right.
So then it becomes, oh, wow, I never even thought about that aspect of the game and how that incorporates with this. So then you're looking at it completely differently now and going, wow, I need to start doing that in my reviews. I need to start looking at that and adding it to my criteria of breaking down a game and what it's made of.
Yeah. So I just wanted to see what your mindset was for consuming content, because it's definitely, we consume a lot of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning game too. I try to listen to a bunch of different people to figure out what can we do better.
Right.
What are we doing better than other people so that I feel good about myself?
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Making yourself feel better.
Self-gratification. Yeah, I think that's one of the major reasons, actually, is just to learn from others, because we're so new at this.
Yeah.
I feel like all these other people, I can learn so much just by listening to their content. And often, if you start from the beginning and they're already at episode 80,
you can see the evolution.
Yeah,
the evolution of how they approach the content. Maybe what worked for them, what didn't work, and kind of take some lessons from that.
And they usually, if it's podcast related, they'll jump back to a previous episode and be like, man, we totally messed this up. We sucked it up big time on this and how this worked. And you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah. And now that's new information for me that I can bring to this channel. So.
Right. All right. So that's pretty cool.
Cool.
So speaking of what other people think of games,
okay,
I wanted to talk a little bit about the Spiel des Jahres nominees.
Yes. Okay.
And see what other people think the game of the year is going to be. So there's some. I want to talk about the two of the three categories, because they have the Kinderspiel, which is like the children's game,
right?
Which I don't play any children's games.
I do.
But the Spiel des Jahres itself and the Kennerspiel, which is kind of like the strategy type game. So let's have a look at the Spiel nominees. So we have Codenames, which I have played, and is, I think, a pretty good game.
Yeah, it's solid. It's not something that, it's not something that I'm going to constantly be asking for. It's an easy game to teach to anyone.
That's what I think is the key for that game, is you can bring all sorts of different people from different groups or different backstories, I was going to say, backgrounds.
Right.
And they don't have to have played a whole lot of games before, and they can sit down and play Codenames.
Yeah.
And
easily,
and they can have a good time. Like the amount of word games that are prevalent in like our society, like Scrabble or like Words with Friends and stuff like that.
Sure.
There's so much, and people love word games, so it's very easy to get people to play a word game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I brought it out at a couple parties. It was a good time. It was a lot of fun. People who weren't gamers were sitting down and going, "Oh, what's this?" And that was entertaining. Can we play again?
And some people are like, "Oh man, can I borrow that game?" Like I haven't introduced the people, and they'd be like, "Oh no, that was crap."
Right. Yeah. So
I think for the Spiel, the more generalized game of the year, I think that's a good nominee.
Yeah, I would agree completely.
Now the other two I haven't played.
But one of them you've come in.
Yes, so Imhotep, I have not played, but Karuba,
right?
I did order that because it was nominated, and I want to get more involved in what's going on, what everyone else is playing. So I figure, hey, this was nominated. I want to give it a try.
Yeah, for sure. This is one that I've looked at as well. I've seen several reviews of it because I was tempted to buy it myself. And it seems very interesting, but again, quite simplistic and open for everyone to be able to play.
Yeah.
So I think it will be fun. We'll probably be doing a review of that in the upcoming weeks.
All right. And then for the Kennerspiel, now for this one, I was pretty confident on 2 of the 3. I'm pretty surprised by the third one. that's on the list.
Yeah, it seems like it doesn't fit.
Like Pandemic Legacy. Okay, like I knew that was going to be there.
Yeah.
Number 1 game. It shot up there in like a matter of like 2 months on BGG. Like everyone's talking about it. Everyone thinks it's the greatest game in the world. I mean, for that reason, I can see why it's on the list.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the greatest game in the world, but a lot of people do, so it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense because it has the Pandemic name, because Pandemic itself is doing so well, and constantly growing, constantly having little evolutions and spin-offs of it. And then taking the legacy aspect, which was huge this last year,
right,
and incorporating that into a game that everyone already loves. I mean, it was a guaranteed win.
I wonder, is there, like, Pandemic does have a lot of kind of spin-offs, like you said, like there's Pandemic, it has like 3 expansions, 4 expansions?
It has 3 expansions.
There's Pandemic Contagion, Pandemic the Dice,
Pandemic Cure.
Yeah, the dice version of the game. Then they're coming out with a new version, Iberia, yeah. And then you have the Legacy Season 1. There's going to be Legacy Season 2.
They have Pandemic Contagion, where you're the virus.
Yeah.
They have Pandemic Cthulhu.
Yeah. There's so
There's
many
like
Pandemic
tons.
games.
Yeah, Pandemic is just like exploding.
Yeah. And then the other one that
It's
I wasn't...
pandemicing. Meta.
It's Outbreak everywhere. And then the other one that I wasn't surprised about and was actually really excited to see on the list was Time Stories.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm gunning for.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think it's going to win.
You don't? Well, yeah, I guess against Legacy, it's uphill.
Yeah.
Very uphill battle.
So for the Spiel des Jahres, I'm calling Codenames as the winner. That's my prediction. And for the Kenner Spiel, I'm calling Pandemic Legacy as the winner.
And the other one that we haven't mentioned yet is Isle of Skye.
Yeah, that was the one I was like, this doesn't feel like it quite fits.
Yeah. Like, compared to those other 2, it's such a small, insignificant game, it seems. Even though it's a great game, it's one that I actually want to buy myself, even though you own it. I'm tempted to buy it for family members as well as gifts.
It was in your top 25 games, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a great game, but it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's just in a different tier than those ones.
Yeah.
But I still, like, all those games are awesome, and I want to try the ones that are on the Spiel des Jahres, because, I mean, I think any of them are good, at least good games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are the nominees.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, good games.
Good games.
It's solid. Like, there's nothing on there that I'm just like, oh, man, that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So that's a step in the right direction. Right?
Yeah, that is a step in the right direction.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Moving on. Okay, should we go to sizzling hot?
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
Let's move on to that.
Yeah, let's do that. So this is where we take a look at the Board Game Geek hotness and see what everyone is raging about. There was only a couple on here that I wanted to mention. The first one I want to bring up was Quadropolis.
Right.
And that's because we just played it today. So might as well talk about our thoughts on that a little bit. It's a hyped game. Everyone is reviewing it and talking about it like crazy. I thought it was a decent game. We just played the classic version, which is the basic mode of the game. And I had a good time. I'm excited to try it again with the advanced expert variant and go from there and see what it's all about.
Yeah, I went into the game for the classic. I'm like, okay, this is just going to teach me the basics that I need to know.
Yeah.
And it's got me excited to try the expert.
Yeah.
I think that's the game. The expert mode is the game.
The actual game, sure.
And I went in but it did be like, yes, there's some cool stuff going on here, some cool decisions to be made. Let's try the expert mode.
Yeah, and there were tough decisions. We only played it 2-player, but there was definitely some tough decisions about what to do and figuring out the whole puzzle. It definitely feels like a puzzle to me that you're putting together. There was also player interaction, I felt, with the game. I was constantly looking over, okay, what tiles do you have left what could you potentially block off? What are you trying to get for tiles? It was really, really interesting game. I'm excited to try the advanced mode.
Yeah, the thing I liked probably the most about it is the little urbanist. So when you take a tile from the main board, you put the guy where you took the tile, and then that blocks off that row and that column.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's a card or a tile that I want, but I don't want to take it right now, and I'm like, okay, I want that one, so I'm gonna take this card. So then the urbanist block that, so I know he can't take it. The next round. And I know it's going to be available. It's hopefully going to be available for me the next round.
Sure.
When it comes back.
Well, in a 2-player, it's really effective because you know that you'll probably be able to take that in the next round, unless they somehow manage to block off that particular one for you. Yeah.
So that was really cool. I'm like, okay, I want that one next. Okay, I'm going to take this tile. Oh, he can't take it.
Yeah, it's good little game. Yeah. So that's Quadropolis. Did you want to say anything else on that?
No, it was check out our video.
Yeah. You can check out our video if it's out. Is it gonna come out? Yeah.
It'll be out.
It'll be out. It's not out yet, but it will be out.
It will be out 2 days before this goes live.
Okay.
And then for the hotness list for me, I'd already mentioned Agricola. That's on there. So and it's up there. So people are excited about that, which makes me excited.
Sure.
But the other one that I wanted to talk about was Star Trek Frontiers.
Okay, yeah.
And how excited I am to play that, because I'll probably be able to get you to play it. So it'll be
maybe,
I'm playing Mage Knight again.
Yeah, the more I've found out about the game, the less I want to play it.
Oh my goodness.
I'm more interested in Star Trek Ascendancy? Ascendance? Is that what it's called?
This is a game you're supposed to be interested in, and you don't even know the name of it.
I don't even know the name, so
I
guess I'll play Frontiers. No, like that one, just because it's not like Mage Knight, has me more interested.
You said that you would be willing to try Mage Knight again.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But so this is a theme that you really like. So hopefully it'll pull you in.
Yeah, I just don't know that I'm going to buy it. I imagine the price point's going to be high, and I'm just going to be like...
I'll buy it. Don't worry.
And then make me play with you. Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it was a game that I was looking into a lot, because I was like, there isn't a Star Trek game out there yet that feels Star Trek and does it right.
Yeah.
And so when I found out about this one, I was like, oh man, that's really cool. And then you told me it was like Mage Knight, same system, and I was like, oh, that's too bad. I've only played Mage Knight once, and it just didn't. It was a bad game. It didn't go well.
It was my fault. It was my fault. I'll take full responsibility. And that's why you play the intro game when it's someone's first time. Like, I made that mistake once of not playing the intro game and be like, oh, you can just pick it up, whatever. You can do it. No, don't do it. Especially with a big game like that. Play the intro game with new people all the time, every single time. Might not be the greatest thing for you because you see all the extra stuff that could be there in the game.
Right.
But if you want any hope of bringing that person back into the game, you got to make sure they have a good time.
Yeah. And I did say I'd be willing to play it again. I was just very soured to that first play.
Yeah, it's my fault.
We'll
I went
see.
for like an advanced variant instead of the intro.
Anyways, we've talked about it previously. Let's leave it at that.
Moving on.
A game that I mentioned a couple podcasts ago, a cool mini or not game called Eternal Darkness.
Okay.
And this was their RPG game that they're going to be bringing to Kickstarter, and they've said recently that it's probably going to be coming out within the next month on Kickstarter. So this has a feel of the video game Torchlight. It's a dungeon crawl similar to maybe Diablo, if you're not familiar with Torchlight. Kind of cartoony graphics.
Is it chibi?
No, it's not chibi at all. And there wasn't much information about it. They had a little bit of art, but that was it. And now they did a press conference, and there's a video on their page, on the Board Game Geek page, that you can watch. It's like a 45-minute press conference all about the game where they're teaching you about it. So that was really cool. If you haven't heard about that and you're interested in a Diablo-style RPG, moving through a dungeon, collecting loot, seems very cool. The one interesting thing that they have here is it is cooperative, but you're moving and there's darkness and there's light on the tiles. So you can actually move into the darkness and pull guys off of you. So they're not gonna be attracted to you. So it's about working as a team in and out of the shadows so that one person isn't getting destroyed by the attacks. So it's kind of a sneaky game that way. All the different classes have a leveling system where you're getting different special abilities. It's got a skill tree upgrade,
right?
Which is very cool. The other interesting thing is as you come across bosses and mini bosses, they're actually equipped with gear. So you give them gear, and if they can use that gear, because it's randomly drawn. So if it's an archer and you give them like a warhammer, they're not going to use it, but they'll have it on them. Whereas if it's an archer and you happen to pull a bow, a flaming bow or something like that, then they're going to be beefed up. And so they're going to be using this gear against you, and then you get to take it after you beat them. So I thought that was really interesting.
So is this a game that you're going to look to back?
Oh man,
that's the question of the day.
Yeah, because I'm looking for that perfect dungeon crawl still, and I haven't quite found it. I did a little bit of research on this one, and I was like, okay, I don't think it's for me. And now that I'm finding out more information, it's kind of pulling me in.
Right.
And I'm like, no, stay back. I don't want to back you. But yeah, we'll see. So if Eternal Darkness was...
I think you're gonna be keeping your eye on this as the campaign goes on, and you're gonna be like, ooh, stretch goal.
Yeah.
Ooh, stretch goal. And then it's just gonna keep reeling you with all these stretch goals. Oh, look, if I back it now, I'm gonna have like, all these extra minis and content and stuff like that. Prepare yourself for that.
I'm already prepared. I know what's going to happen.
You sound so defeated.
I do, because that's what happens. But I'm hoping I won't back it, but I probably will. I want to find out more information. The skill tree leveling kind of has me a little off put. Just the way it looks. It doesn't look awesome to me, but I want to find out more information. I want to see some gameplay footage of it. I want to see them describe exactly how it works, because they just have photos.
Now, is it like a traditional RPG where you have more than just going through the dungeon and fighting things?
I don't know. They haven't. It's a campaign system,
right?
So there is a story arc that you're going to be working through, but that's about all I know. And another thing that I know from the press conference is you can cross-class. So you could have skills from the mage and a warrior. So you can be a battle mage kind of thing, which is very cool that you can do that. Yeah, so you can kind of make your own class in the game rather than just playing a straight... barbarian or whatever.
You're talking yourself into it already.
Yeah, shut up, Jeffrey. Stop talking about this already.
All right, so does that bring us to the end of the...
That's
what's the segment called again?
Oh, man, Eternal Darkness. Sizzling hot, that game. Let me tell you.
See, now this is entertaining for me because I get to see him make a fool of himself.
Right.
So those of you who consume your board game media for entertainment... He's here to provide it.
All right. Well, so let's just continue on with that trend then here. After I take a sip of water to clear my throat. I wanted to do a shout out. So we had our first iTunes rating.
Woo!
Yeah. And it was by Plume_SG. And they gave us a 5-star rating, saying that we were very respectful. Screw you.
Wow, Jacob. That 5-star just went to a 1-star.
So they were saying we were very respectful. We talk about board games inside and out, and they really enjoyed our content.
Yeah.
And I thought that was awesome. I was very excited about that, and I wanted to do something to give back.
Okay.
to Plume_SG as a thank you for this.
Yeah.
So I've prepared a new intro for the next segment. The intro that you don't like that I do. The other intro.
What's the other intro?
Our Kickstarter.
You sound like Tarzan. But no, it's awesome. Thank you very much for going to iTunes and giving us a review, and we're really happy that you enjoy what we do. It's so awesome to hear positive feedback and that what you're doing other people are enjoying.
Yeah, exactly. We love getting feedback and hearing that people are enjoying this content that we provide because we're doing it for you.
Yeah.
We like talking about games. We want to share our hobby with the listeners, and if you're consuming that content and enjoying it, we want to know. So let us know.
And if you absolutely hate us, let us know too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess.
Just like a string of 0-star reviews.
No, I don't. No, well, I mean, don't do that.
I know, like you said, we're very, very new, and when people start out doing something, they're not going to start out being the best. So hearing what we can do better is also good.
Exactly. So if you want to give us some feedback on what you don't like, then for sure let us know. Maybe just don't give us a 0. Don't cripple us.
You got to sandwich
completely.
It between good feedback, bad, then good. There's always got to be a sandwich.
Right. Exactly. All right. So shall we head into this new segment with my special shout out for Plume_SG?
Let's do it.
All right. Here we go.
Entertainment is coming.
Yes. All right. Ready?
Yeah.
In a world where running a miniatures campaign, backers will throw money at your face. Get down! Where a Cards Against Humanity ripoff will earn you millions. Get out! Will they make enough funding to take off? Get to the chopper! Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's time to kick some starts. Stars in Kickstarter. There you go. Plume_SG, that was for you. That's our new intro to Kickstarter.
That's a long intro.
So hopefully you enjoyed that.
But I did enjoy that very much. So
it occurs to me that Arnold, he always needs to get somewhere or get something. All the time, and I was thinking, he could probably really benefit from an events coordinator. Maybe you should go over here and organize things so he's not always looking to get somewhere and get things.
That's really good.
But yeah.
I can't stop laughing at that.
So Kickstarter.
You're so brave.
Get out! Get down! Get to the chopper! All right. So the first game, actually, you know what? I'm going to pick a different game to go first in Kickstarter segment. There is a game that the campaign ends today. So today or tomorrow. So within 24 hours-ish of hearing this, it may already be done. So I wanted to mention it right away. This is a game called March of the Ants. It's right up your alley, Jeff. It's about ants.
Amazing. I still haven't found the perfect game yet. I've been searching far and wide, but I have not found it.
Right. So March of the Ants, you're part of this colony, and you're branching out, you're exploring, you're gathering food, you're actually evolving your ant as you go. So you have this board that is your ant, and you can put a new head on that will give you a special ability, a new torso or thorax, and whatnot, to give your ant species unique abilities. Right. And you're going around and you're gathering food, you're interacting with the other colonies, battling each other, These, centipedes
Battle
and
ants.
grasshoppers and stuff are going to show up and try and eat you.
Mini bosses.
And you got to take them down. It seemed very interesting to me. This was a game that came out a couple of years ago. This Kickstarter campaign was actually for the expansion called Minions and Meadows, which adds a whole bunch of new stuff to the game. And the expansion is $24 US. If you wanted to get the core game and the expansion together, it's $55 US.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So it seemed interesting to me. If that sounded kind of cool to you, you're looking for the perfect ant colony game. Then check this out right away because it will be ending extremely soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly looking for the best ant colony game out there. I remember the first time I heard about an ant game.
Right.
Was Meermies.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I want to be running an ant colony.
Right.
And I tried it, and I was like, I didn't really like it. I found the upgrading your ant colony very linear, and everyone was doing the same thing. Like you go level 1, level 2, level 3, and it does the same for everyone. I want some asymmetrical nature in my ant colony.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to be like the ant colony over there.
Right, exactly. And this one definitely feels that way because you're custom building your ant as you go.
Now, how does the game look? Like, does it look like it has like nice components, good artwork?
Well, with this Kickstarter, they actually have ant meeples that they're adding into the game. They have meeple centipedes.
Anta-eeples.
Sure. Antiples.
Antiples? Anti-eeples?
I don't know. Let us know in the comments if you're watching the video. Or email us. This is something we need to know. But yeah, so I mean, there's upgraded components in the campaign that I think you have to pay extra for them. I'm not 100% sure, but I wanted to bring this up just because I knew that you were interested by the whole ant colony thing, and I wanted to make you aware of it and anyone else that was interested as well.
Well, I mean, we've already learned why you do this segment is so that I will buy Kickstarter.
Shh, Jeffrey.
just go with it.
Just go with it. All right, moving on to the next Kickstarter, there is a game called Load, L-O-A-D. This is a huge miniatures game about the Atlanteans facing off against these other guys, and I don't know who they are.
Lots of Atlantean defenders?
Yeah.
Is that what it stands for?
Yeah, something. No, it's not lots of a. No, but it's very similar to that.
I did not know it was an acronym.
Yeah, it is an acronym for sure. And it is Atlantean Defenders at the end.
Oh, there you go.
But so in this game, it's a 1 to 6 player game. I'm not exactly sure because they didn't say in the video. But I think if you're playing it 1 player, there's these lanes that you're kind of going down. It's kind of like what are those games? I lost it.
Okay.
So
sounds good. I know exactly what you're talking about here.
You have these 3 lanes, and the defenders are battling on one lane, and the other people are pushing down, trying to get through.
Right.
And so you're clashing in these 3 lanes. In a 1-player, or in a 2-player game, I should say, I'm not sure if you're just using 1 lane or all 3. And then if you play a 4-player game, again, I'm not sure if you're using all 3 lanes or just 2 of them now. So I'm not sure how the player count changes the game, but it has huge amounts of minis, classic. They all look great.
Yeah.
It has kind of your units all have special abilities on them, and it has this tier system where you're getting new abilities and adding them into your characters. They have these void spaces.
Right.
So you can constantly upgrade their abilities and switch out their abilities. So certain units will have different abilities when you need them to have those abilities, which seemed kind of cool. And it's just, the enemies are trying to push back the Atlanteans, or push through, and the Atlanteans are trying to defend. That's about all I know. The game is...
So it's cooperative?
It's going to be a team game.
Okay.
It's going to be team play. Because you're either the Atlanteans or the opposing forces. But the game's $100. tons of, and that's US, tons of minis, the whole leveling system on your units. It seemed kind of cool. It's not something I'm going to back, but...
No, it's not grabbing me.
But if you like that kind of, I don't know, it almost reminds me of Memoir 44, where you got the two opposing forces and you're pushing in different areas, trying to get through. You got the different types of units.
Right.
But more of a mythical Atlantean theme. So, yeah, that's, I mean, it seems to be all the hype right now on Kickstarter. It's doing really well.
Right.
So if that's something that you're interested in, there's going to be 6 days left at the time of posting this podcast.
All right.
So that could be something that you're interested in. Another one is Vikings Gone Wild. This is going to have 7 days left in the campaign. One thing that this game... Well, first of all, I guess I should tell you a little bit about the game. The game is a deck builder where you are Vikings.
We don't have enough deck builders out there.
Yeah, that's true. You're Vikings building up your village, and you're trying to make gold and drink beer. And there's monsters that you can go out and fight. You can also attack your opponents.
Right.
And steal their resources from them.
I mean, we're Vikings. Why?
Exactly. Why not? So you're trying to build up this tableau and get resources. You're trying to build your village, I guess, to speak.
I just thought Vikings would be a cool faction for Imperial settlers.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be. They should do that. Like, I mean, it's kind of like barbarians, but I guess they could throw something in there and make it different.
Like have some sort of like ship thing, like mechanic. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, back to Vikings Gone Wild.
So yeah, I mean, it looks like a pretty standard deck builder. You have this tableau in front of you of all these different cards you can buy. You're using resources to buy them. You're using your attack to attack other people. Very standard, just kind of pasted on with a Viking theme, right. And you can fight monsters. You can fight each other, so it's not a cooperative like some of these other deck builders. The one thing that really kind of interested me, and it's nothing super special, but the game comes with a money-back guarantee. So is that like you get the game and you're like, oh yeah, I don't like it, give me my money back, and you send it back to them? Or...
Yeah, that's
like, I've never seen that on Kickstarter. That seemed very odd to me.
That does. I mean, but that's interesting.
Okay. The base game is $39, and
like why would you do that? Why would you blaze that trail?
I think it's to maybe just try and get more people to commit to buying, because so many people are, oh man, you know. I don't want to back a Kickstarter because it's gonna fail, or these people are just gonna take my money and run.
Right. But like, man, it's gotta be like if people are like going to take advantage of like this money back, like it's gonna suck.
Yeah, it's gonna hurt them in the long run, I think. If people are sending the game back.
But I think
I don't know how it works with shipping.
It might just be like one of those things, like there's a lot of these like reward programs where, you know, you have to rely on the consumer to like mail something in or go in. And like people are lazy. Like, yeah. Even if they don't like it or want it, they're just like, oh, whatever.
That's extremely true, yeah.
So like they could be just like, oh, we'll put it here. It might entice a few people to come get us, but not that many people are actually going to take advantage of it, even if they don't like the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could be bad.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I bought something that had a mail-in rebate and I just didn't mail it in.
Right. Yeah. Like, so simple to do.
Yeah. It's like all you have to do is advertise a rebate and no one's going to do it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's like their plan on it. I don't know.
This is interesting.
So yeah, $39 for the base game. If you pay $49, you get the deluxe version, which has a different board, a limited edition game board that comes with it. Limited edition player boards that come, and it comes with, this is the interesting part, 1,100 gems it comes with.
Oh my, we'll be rich.
And these are like those, I think those dollar store plastic pack gems that you see in games.
Sure.
Like the ones in Tricarion.
Okay, yeah.
The orange ones. So it comes with these gems. Nowhere in the rules, and I've read through the rule book, nowhere in the rules does it talk about gems.
Maybe you can use them.
That I saw, anyways.
You can use them for other games.
That's kind of what it seems like.
1,100 gems. That's a lot of gems.
That's a lot of gems.
Are you sure that's not 110?
No, it was 1,100. But I don't know what the gems are for. Maybe you can find out if you go on the Kickstarter page. I didn't see it in there. I didn't see any reference to it in the rules or the videos that I watched. Nothing referenced gems. Maybe it's an expansion thing.
Maybe.
I don't know. Then you can get the ultimate version, which is $89, and it comes with 2 expansions, a 5th player, and 3,500 gems. Because you might need those 3,500.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know why you would need that many gems and what for.
Like, you need like a giant Ziploc bag.
At least 2 of the biggest style.
Can you imagine like accidentally like taking that out and like spilling them on the floor? 3,500
gems.
You must play 3,500 gem pickup.
So that's Vikings Gone Wild. If any of that sounded interesting to you, if you were curious as to what the gems are for and want to let us know.
If you just want 3,500 gems.
If you want 3,500 gems and a game with 2 expansions.
Money back guarantee. Would they count the gems to make sure they got all 3,500 back?
Man, this is a big play right here. You could steal 100 gems from them if you want.
So good.
This is weird. This is becoming a very weird campaign. I didn't plan for any of that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, guys. Let's move on to the next game. I got 2 more I want to talk about. A big hyped up game is One Deck Dungeon, and this game has 7 days remaining. This is a deck of cards, and it's a dungeon crawl. Okay. You're rolling dice, so you're gonna have stats on your character, and if your stats are gonna change based off your class. So you might have like 3 swords for your melee, if you're like or 4 if you're like a barbarian or something like that. Right. And then you're gonna have dexterity stat, and then you're gonna have a magic stat. Your magic stat's probably gonna be 1 die. The dice are color coordinated. Okay, with each of these stats. Okay. So if you are a warrior, you're going to be rolling your 4 melee dice, maybe 2 dexterity dice, and 1 magic dice when you're doing your attacks as you're going through the dungeon. The enemies have little squares with dice numbers and colors in them. So you need to fill up all the squares with your dice in order to defeat that monster. So it might have, 2 melee, 2 magic, and 2 dexterity to beat this monster. So the warrior's not going to be able to do it by himself because he doesn't have the appropriate dice. So you're going to have to work together, I guess, with the other people in the dungeon to defeat these monsters. And you're just going through, every time you beat a monster, it has a reward on it, and it will either give you a special ability or increase your stats, your choice. So there's 2 sides of the card. And you just slide it under your character sheet based on what you want as your reward from beating that monster. You're going to go through a dungeon until you find a boss, fight the boss, beat it. That's essentially the game.
So does it come with multiple, like, different decks? Is it always the same deck that you're going through?
From what I got from it was there are several different bosses, and you're gonna have these 4 or 5 different bosses that you can fight, and based off of the boss, the deck is maybe gonna be a little bit different.
This game seems like there's no decision making whatsoever.
It's rolling dice and then figuring out where you want to align them. Yeah. And then the decision making is do you want a special ability or do you want increased stats so you're better off fighting the boss? I don't know exactly what the special abilities are. I guess that there might be something like manipulating your dice to roll them up higher or lower if you need to be on an exact number or something like that.
There's not much you can do. Like, there's no, like, 3-dimensional aspect or, like, orientation or things like that. It's just rolling dice from the sounds of it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm passing on this one.
So this one is $20 for the core game. You can also pay $36 for 2 copies of the game so that you can play 4-player. Because each copy will only allow 2 players to play the game.
There you go.
It's Tenzi all over again. The only problem with Tenzi is
you can only play 4 player.
You can only play 4 player. So here's the cool. This is the main reason why I wanted to mention this Kickstarter.
I hope it wasn't to get me to back it.
No. The main reason was because you can pay $45 instead of the $20 for the core game. You get the core game, except you get plastic cards. So instead of having cardboard cards, all the cards are going to be plastic instead.
Right.
It was just interesting that they would, have that as an option. And then if you want 2 copies of the plastic edition, $80 will get you a 4-player version of this
4-player game. There you go. That's interesting. Selling your game in a 2 or 4 set. 2 or 4 player set.
It's something.
It's something.
And okay, let's move on to the last one really quickly. It's Faith.
Hopefully this is a good one. I'm feeling it.
Faith, maybe. Faith
reminds me of. Is it a Buffy the Vampire Slayer spin-off?
Yes.
Is it?
No, it's not.
5x5.
So Faith, there's 7 days remaining in Faith. This game is $33. It's for the core campaign. This is an RPG card game.
Okay.
So it's based off of an RPG system where someone is like the overlord kind of running the campaign that you're going through, bringing out the monsters and all that stuff, except there's no dice in this game. You have cards, and the cards have set values on them. The cards are also in different attributes, kind of like I was mentioning before, where you might have strength, or this is kind of a sci-fi world, so you might have technology and strength and dexterity and maybe magic or whatever, and you'll get bonuses to those cards if you're using the appropriate skill based off of what the challenge is, but you're putting down these cards instead of rolling dice, and the cards have set values. So it's about choosing the appropriate card to put down instead of rolling dice for the game, which is kind of unique. That's about all I know of the game, is that it's an RPG just using a card system. The art is really good. Okay. The art's really nice. The world is very interesting as well. It seems like you're following these gods, and that's why it's called Faith, is you're going to have faith in a specific god, and that will kind of force your decisions. Because you're following that god, you're morally obligated to follow that god's viewpoints. So as you get to the decisions in the game, if you're not following that god, you're taking penalties.
Okay. So is it more of a system, or is it like a campaign that you run through? Well,
it calls it the core campaign.
Okay.
So it's going to come out with campaigns. Nick Nianahan did a review of this game, Board Game Brawl, and he kind of said it was an interesting system, but the overall world wasn't fleshed out enough to what he wanted it to be. It was more like it was just, here's the system to play this game, here's the starting campaign kind of thing.
Yeah,
and he wanted them to just kind of expand on the world because he found it so fascinating.
If you're in an RPG, you want to be able to like run, and then you hit the woods, and then you just keep running, and then there's something past that, and there's something past that. There's all like there's a world here. You don't want to just like run and you go through a sheet of paper and like, what? Where am I? I'm outside the world.
Exactly.
There's nothing behind this facade of choices that I have.
Right. So that was it. That's Faith. 7 days remaining. $33 for the core campaign. If you were interested in finding out,
that's really cheap.
Yeah. If you're interested in finding out what a diceless RPG is all about, you can look that up and get more information.
Because everyone hates dice, right?
Everyone hates dice.
I don't think that's true.
That's for sure.
All right, moving on. That was
it.
What was the intro again for this second?
Oh my gosh, no.
All right.
I'm not gonna do anymore. Get down. I can't do the voice.
If Arnold ever loses his voice, he can call you.
Nope. No. Thanks, Plume. SG. Making me do that.
It was awesome. Okay. more people do reviews, so we can get more ridiculous. You've set the precedent now.
Set the precedent.
So every time we get a 5-star review, Jacob will do something ridiculous.
No, it's your turn next, bro.
I can't make those voices.
Well, do you think I can?
Yeah, you do, Joe.
Let us know if I can do the voices. Right.
So, main topic.
Main topic.
Literally the worst.
In a world where literally the worst rule books
exist.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh.
Gotta read it.
So, on a more serious...
Yes?
On a more serious note.
Right.
Oh, man. That's so funny.
So, what makes a rule book good or bad? We're like, the topic is literally the worst rule books, but how are we defining what's good and what's bad in a rule book?
Right. Now, so in my job, my day job, if as it were, I have to write a lot of procedures for other people to follow, and I experience other people writing procedures as well. So I definitely know it's an acquired skill. Like, not anyone can do it, and there are do's and don'ts. So okay. Some of the things I look for in rulebooks, and the same thing in my work, is when you're writing instructions, don't write like a paragraph that's about this long on the page.
The listeners can't see this long.
Well, if you're listening to the podcast, you don't want a paragraph that's about, like,
a page.
Yeah, 10 sentences, or you want 1, maybe 2 sentences per line. Like, you don't want to go crazy, because number one, that's very hard for people to follow, especially with their eyes. And if they need to reference back to that, it's very hard to find the important information. You should be able to condense it down into a statement or a couple statements that is getting at what you want to get across to someone.
Okay.
So games that I'm just like, I open it up and there's just, it looks like I'm reading a novel. There's no breaks. There's no nothing. There's no
right.
No subsections. It's just, hey, here's a novel to read. That's very hard. That's very hard to do.
Yep, I would agree. I have like a short list here of some good things and some bad things. I'm just going to shoot through them really quick. Under the bad section, I have the layout. Having a poor layout where you're constantly jumping around the rule book because it's broken up in a weird fashion and it's hard to follow. With either graphics, examples, maybe it's like just a whole page of theme
right
in the middle of the rule book. Or breaking up all the rules.
And also for layout as well, have it in a correct order that's going to make sense to someone who doesn't know the game. I shouldn't be reading about things that you aren't going to explain for 3 more pages.
Yep.
And I know sometimes it's really hard.
It is hard,
not to do that, but like, if you just assume I know something, I'm like, well, I don't know what's going on with this, and then I'm like rereading earlier section. Oh, did I miss it on the first page? And then I'm like, no, and then it just gets confusing.
Yeah, it gets confusing for sure. I know I've done several designs as well. I've tried writing rule books for my games, and that's one thing that I always find extremely challenging, is not mentioning something that you feel fits in this section, but you're not going to be talking about it fully. It's just, it has a small thing to do with this section, but the main part that you're going to be mentioning it is like a couple pages later.
Yeah, and if you are going to do that, make it abundantly clear.
Yeah.
Oh, this also is something that can happen here. We will discuss this in a later section.
Sure.
So that people realize, okay, I'm just being aware that this is going to take place in this phase.
Right.
But it's not going to come up for a while.
So some other stuff under bad, I have just obviously spelling and grammar.
Yeah.
I mean, that needs to be done properly. Over-theming. If you over-incorporate your theme into your rule book, it needs to have its own place in that rule book. Maybe at the very end of the book, or just very
sidebars.
In sidebars, sure.
Like the I know Vlada Shavatal's like Dungeon Lords and Dungeon Pets. There's theme in the rule books,
right?
But they're kind of contained in like speech bubbles on the side.
Yeah.
Not. I mean, don't build into your rule book. Okay, your imps are going to walk to the market. And then if they are in groups of two or more, they're going to be able to be strong enough to lift a cage and then bring it back to your... What is this?
You just need two guys. That's all you need to know.
When you send your imps to this location, there needs to be 2 or more. Okay, I got it.
Done. Yeah, but I mean, even like you were mentioning, having it broken out, I would prefer to have it either in the beginning of the rulebook or in the end, all of it. And if you feel like you want to read through and get the feel and the story and the theme behind this, great. And if not, boom, here's the rule books. Just read through it.
Yeah.
A little flavor here and there is not a problem for me, but I know Dungeon Lords, there was tons of flavor all over the place. There were speech bubbles. And I enjoyed it because it was funny, but it was very distracting as well. And the last one I have under bad here is anytime a rule book forces you to constantly go back to the rule book to learn something, to verify. Like if I read through the rule book and then I'm playing the game and I'm like, oh man, I got to go back to the rule book to verify that, and you check it and I'm like, okay, and then we keep playing the game. Oh, I got to go back to the rule book to find out. I think that's a sign that wasn't a very good rule book if you're constantly having to go back over and over and over and over.
And especially if that rule book is not easy to reference what you're trying to find.
Yeah. Then
that makes it even worse. It's like I have a question. Let's wait 10 minutes while I basically reread the entire rule book trying to find out where this particular thing is in the rule book. Because I remember something about it from reading it.
Yeah.
But I can't find it. Where is it?
Exactly. So just under good here, I'm just going to run through this quickly. Having reference sheets or reference page, either a little reference card
or a reference
on
pamphlet.
The back, or on the back of the rule book, having that breakdown is really good. Clean layout again, clear font. I know I've seen some games where it's like italics in like a very light color on a dark page, and I could barely read it. Have clear examples that are very straightforward when you're trying to explain something.
Right. So some of the good stuff for me is if something is very important in a section that you're trying to explain, bolding and italicizing that section. So like what my example is of CO2. I played that game wrong because when you propose a project, there's like 3 and they're in a line, and I thought, oh, you had to go left to right.
Right.
But it's any of them that you can propose. And I was like, and I went back and looked at the rules. I'm like, if that word had been bolded, it would have popped out more, and I would have been like,
sure.
Okay. Also, another good thing to do on rulebooks that they do in time stories is that there's a section at the end, rules you're going to forget.
Right.
And then you read through, and it's kind of like a cliff notes of those more ambiguous rules that are maybe more subtle in the rule book. And I was like, okay, this is what I probably didn't pick up on when I was reading it the first time.
Right.
So it points those things out.
Yeah, that's an awesome one.
Yeah, and the other thing, like you said, like quick reference sheets, phase breakdowns of, okay, like we're in this phase, I got to do this and this step and this step and this step. Very, very easy on the back of the rule book. Also, quick setup guides, because it just makes it so much easier to pull out the game, especially when there's like differences among player counts, and you're like, well, how much money do we get in a 2-player game, or how many tiles come out in a 3-player game? If they have that information very clearly laid out in an easy to reference way, it makes you want to pull out the game more because you know it's going to be easy to set up and get into.
Yeah, I remember a game recently. Was it Shakespeare that had that?
Yeah.
Where you just had like a little tile that you pulled out, and it was like, oh, 2-player, this is what you need, and you're just like, oh, great, and you grab those things.
Yeah, you don't even need to open the rulebook. It's right there, and it makes it so much easier to get into the game.
Very cool.
So those are some do's.
Okay. So we got some do's and some don'ts there. And should we just jump into our actual list here and talk about...
Let's do it.
Literally the worst rule books.
Yeah.
Who should start? Is it
Yes.
the words? Is it in any order?
Yes, I ordered it from least egregious to most egregious.
Egregious, I love it.
I think you should start.
Okay. So my number 3 is a game that I really like, and it is Super Dungeon Explorer.
Okay.
Super Dungeon Explorer, at least the first edition rulebook, was very horrible. There were several missing rules that completely just weren't in the rulebook. It had some of the rules that weren't in the rulebook at all, were only on the back of the playing cards for the game.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to know an ability, you would have to pick up a card, find the card that it's on, pick it up, and read that ability, because it's not in the rulebook anywhere.
Yeah.
Make no reference to it. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, that's ridiculous.
Oh.
And the other bad thing about the game's rulebook was it had a quick reference guide. So it was like, hey, if you just want to jump into the game rather than reading through the entire book, just read these 2 pages and you can start playing. There's no way you could start playing after reading just those 2 pages. There's no way. You wouldn't be able to do it.
I can't imagine that you would be able to do that.
Like, I read through and I was like, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? Yeah, it's not even there.
But I think so.
Ridiculous.
Some games that, or actually I think a company that does this well is Fantasy Flight.
Quick reference.
Well, they not quick
start.
Yeah, they have a learn to play where you read that. That's a shorter version, and you read that, and then you can play the game. But then they come with a rules reference booklet, which is like alphabetical, and it has an index on the back. So if you're like, I have a question about this ability, you look on the back, page 10, go to page 10. There's that ability. I know about everything I need to know about it.
Right.
So that's the right way to do that.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that rules aren't in the rule book. It's called a rule book. The rules should be there. I mean, it's great that, like, the one good thing that they have going on with those cards is the character cards. You have your character, and he has these abilities. Right. You flip the card over, that's what all those abilities are. Yeah, so you don't have to search through the rule book.
So that's a quick reference for yourself. It shouldn't be the only reference.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is on a lot of the things. Like, there's no reference to this special ability and how it works in the rule book.
Right.
Like, you can't do that. Now, I think in the newer version, the newer rule book that came out, Forgotten King, Super Dungeon Explorer Forgotten King, it was much better. Yeah. They didn't make these same mistakes. But the first edition, if you ever get that core box, it's not a good rule book.
All right, that was your number 3?
That was my number 3.
Super Dungeon Explorer.
Yeah.
All right, my number 3 is a game that I like a lot. Also, new edition with a new rulebook, which is much, much better. But the first edition rulebook, man, was so bad. And that is Through the Ages.
Okay.
And the reason that this game was bad, and I have memories, vivid memories of the rulebook because of this, is so there's like a beginner, intermediate, and advanced game.
Okay.
So if you're playing the beginner, you play 1 age, 2 age, or all 3 if you're playing the advanced. And so the rulebook teaches you the beginner variant. Then in the next section, it teaches you everything you need to know to play the intermediate one. And then the next section teaches you everything you need to know to play the advanced. So once you get to that advanced stage and you have a question about something that's going on in the game, it's not easy to find at all. You have to remember at what point when I was learning this game did this rule get introduced.
Right.
Because then you need to go to that section in the rule book, and then you're like, did I learn this here? Nope. And then you just flip through the rule book over and over and over and over again, trying to find, okay, was this in the beginner game? I can't remember.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. I mean,
that sounds like a nightmare.
It made it easy for learning because you only learned what you needed to know, but for referencing after that,
they didn't have like an index at the back.
Oh no, it was. So yeah, that was brutal. Like, I have vivid memories of just playing the game. All right, guys, we have a question about this rule. All right, let's go. I can't find it.
Go get dinner.
Take the rule book. You look. See if you have any better luck.
Wow.
Yeah, that's Through the Ages. Could have done with, like I had said, like a learn to play and a rules reference booklet. So if you had a specific rule question that you had, I have a question about how corruption works, and then you just go look up corruption, rather than have to remember when you learned about it.
Right.
So that's my number 3. Wow. Through the Ages.
That sounds really bad.
Literally the worst.
And that's only number 3.
That's number 3.
Oh my word! These are gonna be some bad rule books.
My number 1 is amazing.
Oh, I bet. All right, moving on to my number 2. This was a game that I actually just talked about in this podcast. If you were listening from the start, it is Castaways. So in Castaways, there are, like, I was constantly darting back and forth. Right. You know, anytime anything happened, okay, back to the rule book and flipping through, trying to find it. Normally wasn't super hard to find, but it wasn't easy either. And it was just that constant clarification of everything that was happening. There are missing rules in the rule book again. So stuff that's just not explained. And in the rule book, it says specifically, if there's rule questions that you can't figure out, just go with logic.
Okay.
It says just go with logic. If it's not in the rule book, just go with what you think it should be. This is a rule book. It's not go with your gut feeling book.
It's an RPG. I mean,
so, and this is the best part here.
Okay.
So
we're gonna
so there's gonna be a caveat with this one as I go into it. But so he says go with logic if it's not in the rule books. Well, there's this one rule that's not in the rule books, and so basically when you're in your camp, you need to be by the fire, and you have to have your fire going.
Right.
And if it's not, you take damage.
Right. Because
you're shivering, you're cold. If you don't eat food in camp at the end of the round, then you take all these injuries and you lose energy because you haven't been eating, right?
Right.
In this game, you can get lost. So you're out exploring the mountain, you get lost, you can't make it back to camp.
Right.
So naturally, you don't have a campfire. And if you didn't bring food with you, you don't have food, so you're going to take a bunch of damage. That's not how it works. You don't need a campfire when you're out there, apparently. This is from the FAQ, frequently asked questions. When you're out there, you don't need a campfire.
Why would you ever come back?
You don't need food when you're out there. I guess you just forage for food and you sleep under the foliage. Well, why exactly like you said? Why wouldn't I just like go out there and live in the forest rather than having to stock this stupid fire with wood and the rain keeps putting it out and the fire burns down my hut? Yeah. I'm just gonna live in the freaking forest where I don't need to eat and I don't need shelter.
Because that's logical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go with logic if it's not in the rule book. Well,
the rule book is illogical.
Okay, so yeah, missing rules and his go with logic doesn't match his FAQ.
Right.
So the caveat here is I don't know if he wrote the FAQ or if it was someone else that wrote the FAQ.
Right.
So the FAQ could be wrong, but who knows because it's not in the rule book.
Right.
And the guy who wrote the FAQ, he was pretty sure on this. What? So...
And so talking about bad rule books, like bad rule books make me not want to play the game. When I'm unsure if I'm playing the game correctly, it doesn't make me want to play the game more.
Yeah.
When I'm confident, like, I read this rule book, I'm playing the game, like it's a very clean system. I might have a rule question here and there, but it explains it very well. I'm confident I'm playing the game that way that it's meant to be played. When I'm like at the end of the game, like, did I even play that right?
Right. Exactly.
I'm like, probably don't.
Is that just like a throwaway game?
Do I want to come back to this game? Probably not.
Yeah. So my number 2, Castaways, not a very good rule book.
Now I'm very confident that my number 2 is your number 1.
Okay, probably yeah.
because you were the one who told me how bad this rulebook is, and then I read it afterwards. So my number 2 is Thrash and Roll, which again is a really really good game. But the rulebook is just wow. And I read the rulebook after I had played the game, after you had taught me, and I still was like, what? I was still confused at different parts. At different parts of the rulebook. And this, I think, is a case of, grammar mistakes. I think over-theming a lot of the rules and like it being big paragraphs. Oh, this is this action space. What do you do? Read this half page of what's going on with the theme thrown in, and get out of it what you need. And it's like I can't do it.
Yeah,
they're on version 4 of the rulebook, and I had a look at that today, and it's a lot better. There's like bullet points. You go to this one that you do this or this or this, and then it gives you a more of a rundown.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a bad rule book,
Thrash
but
and Roll.
I'll hold on to that for a second.
All right. So what's your number 1?
My number 1, you ask? It's Thrash and Roll.
I feel you're gonna have more to say about this because you were the one who had to suffer through.
This one was brutal. So first off, I want to say, if you listened to our podcast of Thrash and Roll, I actually did a devil's advocate where I tried to defend this rule book.
Right.
And I just wanted to bring that up right away so people know that I'm not, flippity flopping like a flapjack. That's for you, Rodney. So I do think this is a bad rule book. I just wanted to give some reasons as to why it was good in that previous podcast. So the problems with this are, there's spelling mistakes.
Yeah.
Blatant spelling mistakes. There's graphic mistakes,
right,
where they have the wrong graphics in the wrong places. There's missing graphics completely for things that should be in the rule book and just they're not there at all.
Right.
They have an example section where they give you an example of how something works, and the picture does not match the text.
Right.
So the example text is wrong with the picture that they put in there. Like, okay, the layout is poor as well, with things all over the place. It doesn't flow with if you look at the board, there's all these areas, and there's 8 different sections you can go to in a circle. And they start with the first one, they go to the second, the third, then they skip the 4th and the 5th, and they go to the 7th, then they come back.
Right.
And why would you put it in that weird order, confusing people?
And even if the reasoning was, well, that makes more logical sense for learning the game.
Right.
We'll just order it that way on the board.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason that this section needs to be here and that one needs to be over there. You could have oriented them in any way that you wanted. So
exactly,
if the rule book was done so it's easy to learn, we'll put them in that order around the board. Exactly.
And then there was just general rule mistakes. Like, the rules in the rule book were wrong. They were different than what was printed on the board.
Right.
It would say, in this section of the game you get these rewards, and then on the board it shows you those rewards, and they were different. Like,
yeah, it's pretty egregious.
What? It was ridiculous how many problems were in this rulebook.
And it's such a good game once you get past that.
Right.
And also, you need a quick reference guide for...
And it doesn't come with one either, yeah.
Like, if we didn't have that one printed off that someone else had made on BGG, I don't think I would have enjoyed the game nearly as much, because I would have always been needing to go back to that rulebook and trying to find the information and reading half a paragraph to try and find it.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, this game would not have been as good in my eyes.
Yeah, like, all the cards that you have in that game have 5 different abilities that you can do. They're listed nowhere except in the rule book. So you need to remember, and they're not on the cards either.
Yeah.
It's just, here's a card that has a picture, and you can do these 5 things with it. Well, What are those 5 things?
Yeah.
Oh, just go look in the rule book.
Yeah. No.
Like, you need to remember 5 things for every card? what?
Yeah.
Like, give me a reference sheet. So
that's your number one.
My number one. And to go back, the reason why I think this game was poor was that they wanted to release it for Essen. That was my guess. They had the game ready to go, but the rulebook wasn't ready. And they were just like, people will figure it out. Print, throw it in. We have it for Essen. Right. People can buy it.
Yeah.
I'm almost positive that's what it was, which is, I gotta poo-poo them.
Poo-poo.
Man, bad rulebook.
So as bad as that one is,
you have something that's worse.
It's not as bad as what I have for my number one. At least we were able to play the game.
Okay.
After reading that rulebook.
Yeah. This is a game that you haven't played yet.
I haven't been able to play the game because I don't know how to play it. I've read the rulebook like twice, 3 times.
Is this a? Did you do a theatrical reading for this on our Twitter account?
A watch it read.
A watch it read.
And that rulebook is Neanderthal.
Nice.
Oh my word. This rulebook is the worst. It's not even the worst that I've read. I don't think there could be a worse rulebook in existence.
Wow.
For a game.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you want to play the game? Okay, we're in this phase. You can either gather goods as per A2, and that references you a section in the rulebook, or you can hunt as per G3, and it just says G3. And then you're okay. I want to know about hunting. Let's go to G3, and then I go to G3, and it's like, well, you need tools as per B7, and it needs to be on a card as per D6, and you're like, oh, and it's just you can't read it from start to finish, and
it's impossible,
and it makes sense, and you can't read it by following the directions because every section you go to references like 3 other sections.
Are you kidding me? Oh, I love it.
I don't know how it's possible. Honestly, I don't know how it's possible to learn the rules to this game from the rulebook. I don't know. I want to play this game. The theme of it, the mechanics. I mean, it looks interesting. I want to try playing this game, but every now and again, I have the rulebook. I don't have it in the box because I leave it out. So every now and again, when I feel like I have the energy threshold met, I can like read a page, and then hopefully eventually enough it will sink in that when I read through it for a last time, I'll be able to understand enough to be able to play the game.
It's Castaways in real life. You're spending one of your worker actions to go rest before you can spend another one to go try and read the rulebook.
The worst. Literally, this is literally the worst rulebook.
Yeah, I haven't read this one. I haven't even looked through it, but I've had you read it for my camera as I recorded it for Twitter. It was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing because it made no sense. No sense. I mean, that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's my number one. Neanderthal. Worst rulebook ever.
And it sounds worse than Thrash and Roll because, as you said, we were able to play it. So
we were able to play the game.
I will concede to you having the worst rulebook.
I win.
One last thing, I just wanted to mention a really good rulebook.
Okay.
That I've read, and that was actually Black Fleet, which is a game that I don't like. It's a game that frustrates the heck out of me, which is why I don't like it. But I remember reading through the rulebook, and as I was reading from page to page, they had huge font. Huge font. It was so easy to read. Small paragraphs saying, okay, this is what you do, this is what you do, this is how this works. And as I was reading through, I was like, man, this is so simple. This is so easy. Get to the end, here's frequently missed rules. As you were mentioning about time stories. These are the things that people get wrong in a nice little box. Below that box, reference as to how the flow of gameplay. Right. This is how it breaks down.
That's good.
Beautiful.
Too bad you didn't like it. Too bad you didn't love the game as much as you like the rulebook.
Yeah, the rulebook that's the best rulebook I've read.
Yeah, I don't know what's the what would be the best rulebook for me. I mean, just the most recent one that I read was Quadropolis. That was a really done rulebook. I remember when we did the before and after for Mombasa.
Yeah.
I said this is an ideal rulebook.
Right.
Like it was, I understood perfectly how to play the game after one read through of the rules, and that's
awesome. Yeah, that's a good sign.
That's perfect. I did want to mention one other thing that a rulebook does that was really good is the Castles of Burgundy.
Okay.
In the rulebook, there's text and you read through the rules, but then there's also if you had already read the rules and you wanted to come back and try and find a rule, in the sidebar is kind of a breakdown of the main points of what corresponds to the text on the other side.
Yeah.
So you could quickly find, okay, this is what I want to find. Here's a quick run through of that section or that action, and then if you still don't understand, then it's just you move your eyes to the left on the page and you can read even more. So it was really good for coming back to the rules and being like, okay, how do I do this? And it's like, okay, I got it.
Keyflower did that as well, actually. Now, I remember there being some very confusing rules in Keyflower, so I don't think it was a great rule book, but I liked that aspect where they had that sideboard or a sidebar, and it's just like, here are the rules, exactly how it works. Here's the elongated version in paragraph if you don't understand.
Yeah,
so,
cool.
Yeah. So I had one last question, which I think we've already answered. Does a bad rule book inherently make the game itself bad?
Absolutely not.
I agree, 100%.
But
all three games that I mentioned here, I own. 2 of those 3 are on my top 25 list.
I think a bad rule book could make a good game go unnoticed or a good game go unplayed.
Sure.
I think having a bad rulebook does nothing but hurt the game.
Exactly. I would 100% agree with that.
Yeah, like if you have a good game and and that's the important thing is if you have a game that you put your heart and soul in and designed and all that stuff, the rulebook is just as important. Maybe even more important than the actual game itself, because if people can't pick up the rulebook and actually learn how to play your game, then they're not going to play your game, and then everything that you put into it goes to waste. So it's not something that you can just skimp on or put not very much thought. Like you need to put a draft. You need to edit that. You need to go through many drafts. Have people with cold eyes review the rulebook.
Exactly.
Hey, you haven't played this game before. If you read this rulebook, do you know what I'm talking about? Getting people who've played the game to read the rulebook, you're going to miss stuff every single time.
Yeah. I constantly see that all the time. Every time I read a bad rule book where something's misplaced like that, I'm like, they didn't have someone who didn't know the game read through this. And I watched this other kind of podcast video where they talk about designing a board game and the things that you have to do, and they constantly say, have people who don't know your game read through the rule book and play the game while you're not there with no coaching,
right?
And record it on video so you can find out, okay, what did they do wrong? Why did they do it wrong?
Yeah.
And that's the best way to fix these things. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate, but doesn't break a game completely.
No, it just makes me sad.
Potential to, but like Neanderthal.
I want to play it, but it's a mountain I have to climb.
All right.
Well, that was episode 14 of Meeple Leaf Reviews.
Episode 14.
As always, remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And always follow us on Twitter. Always follow us on Twitter.
Always.
At Meeple Leaf.
And go to iTunes, review us. Remember, if you give us a 5-star review, Jacob will make a fool of himself.
Yeah,
every time.
Sure, I guess for a little while anyways.
Until they just start pouring in.
We'll see what happens.
All right.
And go down in the description down below, go to our board game links and give us some hearts as well. If we reach 50 hearts, I might do something
really
something special, super special.
All right, as always, thanks for joining us. It was a blast.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun.
I certainly had a laugh.
Well, thanks.
And we'll see you guys next time.
All right, take care, everyone.